The tank was running on fumes, dripping sweat like a faucet, fighting gravity just to stay upright. Eyes locked forward, the young fighter dropped the bad news: the dungeon boss had arrived. Standing before them was a level 67 Saburamus dragon, a total nightmare engine. The beast unhinged its massive jaw, charging up a fireball to nuke the entire squad. The archmage screamed for a defensive play, but the tank yelled back, "My shield's gonna shatter like glass." Then the vibe shifted. The bearded fighter froze, totally confused. Wait, who is that? Just yards away stood a green-skinned freak with razor claws and a dirty loincloth. The dragon lunged again, radiating pure hatred, but it didn't matter. The long-nosed goblin just smirked, taking a huge bite out of a greasy chicken drumstick. The party stood there, jaws on the floor. Was this a glitch? Boom. A blinding yellow aura erupted around the dragon, catching the monster completely off guard. The predator shrieked as critical damage racked up instantly, though the beast refused to go down, remaining a lethal threat to the humans. Meanwhile, the little green guy started hopping around, hyping himself up, knowing he just pulled off a pro gamer move. He waved his bony hands, desperate for clout, trying to shock the audience. The trio was absolutely shook. A lowly, brainless goblin just soloed a dragon. Why were the mobs suddenly turning on each other? As the dragon glitch faded into nothingness, the bearded guy frantically pointed at a nearby ridge. Guys, eyes up, look. They spotted a weird sight. A kid with a megawatt smile, tongue out, chilling like he didn't just break the game. The dark-haired boy watched the chaos, clearly satisfied with his puppet show. The squad below realized this was all his doing. But in reality, the guy was grinding in real life at a construction site, sweating buckets, hauling heavy bags, just to scrape by. He tossed cement sacks where the foreman pointed, living for those split-second breaks. In-game, he was a goblin, a bottom-tier scrub stuck in rookie dungeons with zero future. The world was evolving, but the long-eared loser, he was hard stuck no matter how much XP he farmed. Suddenly overheard chatter about Mr. Cha caught the dark-haired boy's ear. Co-workers were buzzing about a guy who unlocked a hidden class in Gates of Destiny. Talk about winning the lottery. They were obsessing over that viral VR MMO. That was so realistic, players basically ghosted reality to live inside it. It was the ultimate escape. The gear cost a fortune, but thanks to PC bangs, on every corner anyone could log in. The game blew up so hard. Investors poured in serious cash, flipping the script completely. Virtual loot became actual rent money, and players guarded their inventories with their lives. Gates of Destiny changed everything. At first, our MC Kim Chul-soo loved it, but the honeymoon phase ended fast. He just wanted to wreck mobs and decompress after work. Instead, he triggered his stonemason skill, swinging a pickaxe, to farm a pathetic 3 units of ore. He clutched his head, raging. We're just mining useless rocks all day. Where's the progression? Tears streamed down his face. Where's the hero arc? Where's the waifu? The wedding? Suddenly he looted something insane, an emerald healing crystal, worth at least 300,000. He stuck out his nasty tongue, licking the gem like a creep, fantasizing about the rich life. But his daydream shattered when a soft, polite voice said hello. He looked up, stunned by a total goddess. She clocked him as a mason and asked for an assist. My guild needs to clear this dungeon, she explained. But the path is blocked by debris, and we're clueless about mining. We figured we'd hire a pro. Kim shrugged. I can smash rocks, but don't expect me to fight. The mustache guy stepped in immediately. We'll handle the aggro. You just stick to your trade. And hey, don't assume I know climbing just because I'm a porter. Kim stared at him confused. But then it clicked, this could actually work. He was only in it for the grind, stacking XP, and maybe snagging some rare crafting materials. But there was one massive red flag. Trusting randoms in this game was a gamble. Sure, respawning was a thing, but getting betrayed still sucked. Suddenly, his internal monologue was cut short when a stunning girl clamped onto his wrist with her delicate porcelain hands. She dropped a line about having a thing for the rugged hands of a mason, and just like that, the guy folded. He immediately agreed to join the squad. But 5 seconds later, drenched in cold sweat, Kim Chul-soo panicked, realizing his mouth had moved faster than his brain. Pure cringe washed over him. He flashed back to the level 7 Grey Wolf and realized something terrifying. The mobs here weren't boss tier, but he was still too weak to scratch them. Reality hit hard. As a pack of starving predators encircled him, all he had to defend himself, a rusty basic pickaxe. The alpha wolf lunged, and our terrified hero froze, shielding his face and waiting for the end. The girl shouted for him to stay put then. Unleashed a Salamander clan skill, roasting the enemies alive in a blaze of glory. Concerned, Catherine Lee checked if Kim was hurt, acting like a total angel. Kim stood there, jaw on the floor, absolutely shook by her overwhelming power, but managed to stammer out a thank you. Wiping away a fake tear, the beauty played the victim card, admitting she was so scared, and begged him not to abandon her in such a dangerous zone. Totally hypnotized, Kim started wondering if he'd stumbled into a romance anime considering this goddess wanted to stick to him like glue. Nearby, her partner was casually sidestepping wolves, telling her to chill out. Keeping zero emotion on his face, he unslung his weapon, ready to deliver a lightning-fast beatdown to the remaining beasts. With one clean, brutal swing, the fighter sent monster guts flying in every direction, keeping them at bay effortlessly. The warrior grumbled that they usually didn't bother with low-level runs, but rumors of a rare ore deposit convinced them to check it out. He then threw some shade, adding that dumping experience points into a looting skill was absolute trash behavior. Kim felt personally attacked. The tense hero wanted to snap back without him. This meathead couldn't mine a pebble, but the guy's arrogance was intimidating. Glaring at his teammate with murderous eyes, the stern Kim Chul-soo asked if the guy seriously thought he had zero combat utility. But deep down, Kim knew the truth. He really didn't have any fighting skills, so he had to swallow his pride. The bearded tank muttered that if their intel was bad, they were going to lose a ton of cash on this trip, and his buddy told him to pray that wasn't the case. The warrior threatened that if this was a bust, someone was going to pay for wasting their time in this hellhole. Bitter and annoyed, Kim thought to himself that he was sick of eating dirt and being humiliated just for a few coins, even if it was his daily reality. He kept telling himself just finish the job, grab the bag, and log off. But the grind never stops. Fueled by pure rage, the bricklayer slammed his pickaxe into the rock face with everything he had, cracking the massive boulder wide open. Kim and the squad stood there, totally stunned by the phenomenon, unfolding right in front of them. It suddenly clicked for the main character. He had just exposed a secret underground chamber. The entrance looked insanely luxurious. Kim rubbed his eyes in disbelief while the brown-eyed fighter, sweat dripping down his face, started calculating their next move. Buzzing with adrenaline, the young man yelled that the dungeon was loaded with epic rewards and maybe even a hidden class. He shouted that they had hit the jackpot, and the lovely Catherine Lee flashed a serene, knowing smile. But behind the hero, the scumbag warrior silently gripped his weapon, eyes glowing red with bloodlust, preparing to strike without a word of warning. The happy kid was literally jumping for joy, shouting about how he was going to be rich like Mr. Chom. But right then, PvP mode activated. A blade tore into his back and he screamed in pure agony. Collapsing to his knees, a stunned Kim Chul-soo gasped for air, realizing his spine had taken a direct hit. The cunning Lee stifled a cruel giggle, remarking that they only needed a naive bricklayer to find the door. The horror set in. Kim realized these weren't teammates. They were vultures who had played him from the start, and were now discarding him. The brown-eyed guy yanked him up by his hair, sneering that he'd wrap this up quickly, adding that this betrayal was the fool's only payment. Seconds later, the helpless boy was tossed aside, like a bag of garbage, unable to even utter a last word. Eventually, the young man peeled his eyes open, terrified, because he had no clue where he was. Panic turned to shock as the sweating guy realized he was still breathing. His enemies hadn't finished the job, so he figured they actually had a heart and pitied him. Nope, the hero had just been revived, and his S-tier healing crystal snapped in two. It was absolutely worthless now. Fighting back angry tears, the brunette started pounding his fist on the ground, realizing his hard-earned cash had just vanished into the void. Taking a second to chill out, he glanced up and spotted the gaping maw of a hidden dungeon right in front of him. That got the gears turning. The bitter gamer realized the zone hadn't been cleared yet, and swore he'd destroy the trash party of snakes who jumped him. Deciding speed was key. Our brave guy charged ahead, winding up to leap into the abyss. Zero hesitation, he threw his arms out and launched himself off the edge, fully committed to the flight. But reality hit hard, literally, because those were actual stairs, not a pit. He tumbled down and face-planted onto the cold stone floor. The hero cursed the devs for the troll design, thinking normal people don't build dungeons like this. While shaking off the concussion, the young man wondered if he'd actually stumbled into a secret loot paradise. Looming ahead was a massive stone statue of a creature on a throne. Welcome to the Goblin tomb. The brave kid was instantly creeped out by the ugly monster, which sported a nasty, gut-churning grin that screamed danger. As Kim Chul-soo crept forward, he prayed this dungeon held more than just hungry beasts. It was dead silent, making him wonder where those three cunning scammers who tricked him had disappeared to. Suddenly, a twitching gloved hand caught the hero's eye, moving faintly nearby. The exhausted brunette couldn't process the scene, so he leaned in to investigate. At his feet lay the red-haired dwarf from the trio, floating in a pool of pitch-black blood. It sent a shiver down his spine. Kim Chul-soo, sweating bullets, recognized the dwarf instantly, but the chaos wasn't adding up. In the game chat, the dwarf was spamming requests for a revive, but the young man hit back that he didn't have the skill. He couldn't help. The dwarf called him greedy, claiming he was just ignoring him to hoard all the rewards. But honestly, Kim had no clue what his next move was. Suddenly, a system alert popped up. His level was too low for this dungeon. He needed to evacuate like now. The panicked hero stared at the notification, not fully grasping the danger at first. Then blood-curdling screams tore through the air behind him. The startled kid spun around, wondering who was dying, and scanned the dark. Nearby, a gigantic fist had snatched up, the brown-eyed scammer from before crushing him like a soda can. The monster's other hand completely engulfed an exhausted Catherine Lee, who looked like she had already accepted their fatal ending. Staring at the repulsive abomination known as a Geiger, Kim questioned if this was even Goblin territory. The terrified guy checked the stats. His opponent was level 80. Winning was statistically impossible. The merciless monster unhinged its disgusting jaw, ready to snack on the helpless player. In a split second, it bit the brown-haired man's limb clean off. The guy didn't even get a scream out before he was deleted, fighting the urge to hurl. Kim Chul-soo called the scene horrific, but he couldn't look away. The devs added sensory feedback to Gates of Destiny, so players felt pain, but there were safety limits. Sobbing in terror, Catherine Lee begged to be saved from the beast's grip, but that was a tall order. The incredibly tense guy screamed at her to look away, making it clear his revival ability was useless against a nightmare like this. The pain spiked directly to the brain, and just like that, it was game over. Thrown completely off balance, Kim Chul-soo made the terrified call to bolt immediately. He didn't feel an ounce of pity for the trio, since they had left him for dead first. His safety was priority number one. The young man tried to keep his cool. In this nightmare scenario, choosing the only path that made sense, he moved forward relentlessly, knowing a single pause would equal instant death. At that moment, a creepy manic laugh escaped the hero's lips, telling himself survival was the only goal, even if he had to be a rat to do it. Suddenly, a notification chimed. The Goblin King sensed a kindred spirit and was actually impressed by the boy's cowardice. Freezing in his tracks, the boy locked eyes with the statue of the ugly, pot-bellied creature on the throne. Gritting his teeth, the brunette admitted he didn't want to go down this road, but the game gave him zero choice. The image of Catherine Lee sobbing was burned into his retinas, haunting the low-level bricklayer. If he had just an ounce more power, he never would have bailed. Meanwhile, that ruthless beast landed another crushing blow on the girl, trying to wipe her existence off the map. All our MC wanted was a normie job and a life without scraping for pennies. He dreamt of slaying monsters, not smashing rocks, until his hands were nothing but calluses. Tears streaming, he pounded his chest in frustration, screaming that he didn't choose this loser life. Totally unhinged, he took his rage out on a stone goblin statue that seemed to be mocking his cowardice. He screamed about getting roasted by teammates and randoms in-game, and now even this big-nosed freak was dissing him. Suddenly, ping, a system notification popped up. Kim Chul-soo was now an honorary goblin. His squad had his back. Hidden class unlocked. The AI assistant asked if he wanted to spec into a summoner of these pointy-eared predators. This was all total gibberish to him. He scanned every line of the holographic text, totally shook. Still sobbing that ugly cry but forcing a smile, Kim hit decline with zero hesitation. But the system, it didn't care. It locked him in as one of the goblin kin, ignoring his desperate protests. Out of nowhere, a horror with skeletal human hands spawned right behind him. Danger level critical. An icy chill shot down his spine. He knew instinctively running was a game over. Time for a big brain play. He activated his new skill to save his buddy, summoning a goblin, who was locked and loaded for combat. No time to think, he triggered the ability instantly. He instantly hated the blindingly extra VFX. Seconds later, a grotesque, long-nosed creep materialized. Its smirk, low-key terrifying. Kim Chul-soo grinned, figuring this goofy-looking mob would work as perfect bait. While it drew aggro, he'd ghost. Keeping his cool, he pointed a finger at the nearby threat, giving orders to his new minion. The loudmouth bruiser tightened his grip on a crooked wooden club and charged. The enraged, multi-toothed beast flailed its arms wildly, desperate to avoid the hits. Convinced this was the play, our hero didn't want to waste a single frame. He prepped his exit strategy. But then, plot twist, the goblin clutched the W in less than 2 minutes. One swing, the mutant pinned the enemy's bony arm effortlessly. Total domination. Kim was thrown completely off balance. He froze, jaw on the floor, brain buffering. Another system alert, massive XP gains acquired. He couldn't compute the math on that one. But suddenly the protagonist unlocked skills like lunchtime and walking time. His summon instantly leveled up by 1. Not a bad start for a rookie run. Hype on his own victory, the eared creature started mumbling and grinning like a maniac. He actually soloed that giant Chul, so leaned in to inspect his seemingly brain-dead minion, watching disgusting drool drip from the tip of its tongue. He couldn't process it. This hideous thing was max level. Meanwhile, Kim was still a noob. Flashback to the trauma, the massive mutant gripping a brown-eyed guy and dragging him toward a gaping maw. A scene seared into Catherine Lee's nightmares. Seconds later, the guy was literal paste, devoured by the merciless beast. The girl screamed her lungs out, realizing she was next on the menu. Plot twist, it was just a game. She was wearing a VR headset, but the emotional damage was real. A worried bystander rushed over to the girl who was clearly drowning in the virtual nightmare. He ripped the headset off Catherine's face to let her snap back to reality. The panic-stricken brunette realized the horror was over a situation the man hadn't wanted to believe was happening. Seeing the terror in her eyes, he dropped the hard truth she wasn't walking away from this easily. Back in game, the MC's new sidekick kept swinging that club, dealing massive DPS. The little trickster deleted entire packs of wolves, and his master's XP bar was filling up by the minute. Soon the goblin's eyes glowed crimson, his bloodlust spiking, rising exponentially. Meanwhile, a chill Kim Chul was just looting mana stones from the ground. He told Shikek to chill out, realizing the greedy little guy was getting a bit too cocky. Chul Su stared at the mountain of wolf claws and shimmering shards, grinning like a maniac. Jackpot. We physically can't even haul this much loot. Since the little green guy obliterated the Geiger, the system marked the dungeon as cleared. And with his squad mates wiped out, he was the sole survivor walking out of that hellhole. Still, Chul Su was baffled. How has this big-eared menace never leveled up once? Especially after he just soloed every single enemy in his path like it was absolutely nothing. 0 stats, 0 info. The system gave him nothing on the summon, leaving the hero completely in the dark. It made no sense how a trash-tier mob could one-shot a mutated boss. But logic took a back seat as greed kicked in, practically drooling at the potential payday. Chul Su told himself to abuse this glitch before the devs patched it out. Cut to the Citibank, where he rolled up to the counter asking the teller if he could make a quick transfer to a third-party account. Then he dropped the bomb. He had some high-tier loot he wanted to liquidate for cold, hard cash. He slid a Geiger's heart and membrane across the counter. The brown-eyed teller froze, her composure cracking. She started crunching the numbers, and seconds later, her expression shifted from professional to pure terror. Eyes bulging, she screamed for her manager at the top of her lungs. Chul Su winced, wondering if blowing out eardrums was standard customer service. Before he knew it, he was ushered into a private room sitting at a fancy table. The bank director himself was playing waiter, pouring tea from a porcelain pot into an expensive-looking cup and saucer. The pint-sized manager flashed a customer service smile. "How is the tea, Sir?" Chul Su didn't hold back. "It's ice cold." The manager panicked, apologizing for forgetting to actually boil the water. Ignoring the awkwardness, Kim got straight to the point. "I'm here for the payout, not the beverage." The director nodded, shifting gears. He mentioned he had some exclusive propositions for a VIP like him. He started pitching their elite investment systems, promising massive returns for a young hunter with capital. Chul Su got the gist, but he was suspicious. Shouldn't a regular employee be handling this pitch? The glasses-wearing director just advised him to watch the exchange rates, then finally got down to business. He pulled up the appraisal for the artifacts. Then he dropped the number. For both items, we're looking at 230 million won. Chul Su nearly crushed the tea mug. His brain short-circuited. He was ready to kiss that little green freak right on the mouth. Without the goblin flatlining the Geiger, he'd be broke. Suddenly, that hideous monster looked adorable. Who's a sweet boy, he thought. Then reality hit. Okay, no, he's still objectively disgusting. Back outside, Chul Su panicked. He needed to ditch the goblin fast because every head on the street was turning their way. Bystanders snickered at the idiot walking a big-eared monster, like a dog whispering that he must be out of his mind. Little did they know, Chul Su kept muttering, "They're not looking at me, they're not looking at me," but that mantra wasn't working. Suddenly, the goblin decided he was done with the disrespect. The creature swung his club at a bystander's knee crack, but before he could follow up, a massive shadow swallowed him. The goblin froze, sensing danger. A red-haired tank with a massive weapon resting on his shoulder stared down, looking absolutely livid. "Filthy goblin on my street," the crowd gasped, buzzing with excitement. It was him, the terror of the worlds. Peyton, the heavy hitter from the Everton Guild. Dripping with sweat, Kim thought, who picks a cringe nickname like Terror of the Worlds? Definitely a psycho. Sensing the air turn heavy, Chul Su yelled at the giant, desperate to de-escalate. "Hey, don't touch him," he shouted, defending his club-wielding summon. Peyton didn't even blink. The furious hunter swung his machete, aiming to cleave the monster in two. But then, the impossible happened. The big-eared runt raised a hand, intercepting the attack, and delivering a lightning-fast counterblow. Critical hit. Peyton stumbled back, coughing up a mouthful of blood as his chest caved in from the impact. The crowd went dead silent. Did a level 1 goblin just floor the terror of the worlds? One single blow. Kim started hyperventilating. If they linked him to this overpowered anomaly, he was dead meat. From the shadows, a hooded figure scoffed. Pathetic. Losing to trash. Enter In Yun, the son of darkness, a level 30 assassin. And he brought his crew to avenge their humiliated guildmate. Chul Su panicked. He knew his goblin wouldn't lose, but if the creature slaughtered an entire guild in public, that's a PR nightmare he couldn't survive. "Back off, I'll handle this beast myself," Chul Su yelled. The assassin glared. "Move, kid, or I'll gut you too." Chul Su narrowed his eyes and warned him. Taking on that big-eared beast head-on, total suicide mission. The assistant, had already wasted his stone-throwing cooldown. Bam Minsung Skarako gets deleted, taking massive damage instantly. Terrified, the brunette bails. He thought this game life was going to be a dream run, thanks to the Goblin, but reality hit different. Suddenly, a gray-haired old dude lurking nearby yells out, waving the rookie over for cover. The kid asks for an ID check, but the bald guy screams, "There's no time for intro cinematics." Plot twist, it's actually Cinderella the snake, dragging the boy inside to silence him permanently. Kim is freaking out, screaming that he's busy trying to survive when a system interface pops up in his face. The Goblin Lord watches this betrayal, realizing Cinderella just baited everyone into dropping their guard. The kid freezes, jaw on the floor. The ruler had already roasted him for being weak, but now, he's got a brand new nickname that cuts deep. Our main character felt completely innocent, baffled by why he's being treated like a helpless noob. The salty warrior spits facts that trio of scumbags invited him, backstabbed him, and left him for dead. But the brave Goblin steps up. He is done letting these guys disrespect their stats. His nose sharpens into something monstrous, tongue lolling out as he announces the Everton Guild is getting razed to the ground. Meanwhile, the guild squad is parkouring over rooftops, hunting the enemy, who snatched the creature. From the shadows, the blonde tells In-hyuk she'll handle the kid solo. No need for a team wipe. But the fighter senses something off about this Goblin. It one-shotted Patton Annihilator. That's not normal. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream rips through the air. The assassin instantly clocks the voice. It's the traitoress Cinderella. He needs backup. But In-hyuk freezes, an icy shiver shooting down his spine. Looming right behind him is the Goblin, hungry for a snack. No hesitation, the warrior swings his blade, going for a sneak attack. But the hit lands with zero impact. Literally zero damage. The monster just grimaces like a fly landed on him. In-hyuk starts sweating bullets, realizing he missed the details when his teammate got wasted earlier. This isn't a fight, it's an execution. But he clutches his composure. He isn't rage-quitting yet. He slashes again with his daggers blocked. This ugly little Goblin is parrying attacks that would shred a normal player. Ji-hyun, watching from the sidelines, screams at In-hyuk to stop lagging and move before he gets finished. The flushed fighter is processing the data. Dead, silent, poker face on, he can't compute how a low-level trash mob can deal 1 million damage. Is he hacking? The assassin doesn't know the mechanics, but he refuses to fold. He activates Extreme Evil. His speed tanks by 90%, but his crit rate skyrockets. The blonde girl asks why he's popping an ult on a single Goblin, and he snaps back that it works as a passive too. Gripping his blades, he vows to end this in one hit and farm the next mob. The lady backs off, warning him to wrap it up before they draw aggro. She fires off Gale Arrow, scoffing that wasting combos on this pathetic Goblin is embarrassing. The rare skill strips, all movement buffs from the target. In-hyuk feels the advantage, surging with power. The cold-blooded warrior rushes in. Game over. He moves like lightning, daggers turning into a blur. But the monster just stands there, face twisted in a mockery. In-hyuk thinks this is impossible, but the HP bar doesn't lie. The opponent's nasty smirk confirms nobody is walking away from this. Suddenly, the fighter takes massive damage and gets ragdolled into a wall, sending the archer into full panic mode. Through the smoke, a silhouette asks, "Who was talking all that trash earlier?" Ji-hyun freezes, mouth wide open, realizing this grinning Goblin isn't just a monster, he is the boss level. Kim Cholso dropped the bombshell, he was the one who summoned the beast. Meanwhile, the drooling mutant just stood there wagging its gross, slobbering tongue. Panic written all over her face, the girl demanded answers. How did he manage to stomp the yin-yang of darkness, one of the Everton Guild's top-tier heavy hitters? Flipping the switch to full-blown arrogance, our main character leaned in. Being the bad guy, yeah, that was kind of the whole point. That explained his twisted commands. The lady's knuckles turned white as she clenched her fists, teeth grinding together as she hissed, "What do you want?" Realizing she was totally clueless, the guy just watched as she exploded, screaming that this entire mess was on his hands. She labeled him a psycho, but the kid just flashed a savage, twisted grin that made him look downright hideous. He clapped back with facts. The faction swung first. So honestly, he was in a pretty tight spot right now. The dark-haired plotter knew optics were everything. To sell the scene, he signaled the Goblin crank up Ji-hyun's screaming volume. A nearby mob caught the shrieks and heads snapped toward the noise instantly. Total high alert. One guy pointed into the distance instantly, clocking the weirdos who had bailed earlier. It's them. Our nervous hero spotted the audience and whispered a frantic order to his subordinate. Wrap it up now. Time to make a break for it. The monster, feeling playful, slapped a massive hand over the terrified blonde's mouth to shut her up. He clamped down on her wrist, locking her in place. From the crowd, a voice roared. That beast wrecked the Everton Guild, and it's about to finish off the survivor. Kim Chulso froze. He heard the accusation and realized he was cooked. Tensing up, he barked at the Goblin to drop the girl immediately. Things were getting way too hairy. The crowd gasped. A dude in total noob gear was stepping up to a monster that even the elite faction couldn't handle. The goblin pulled his claws off the sobbing Ji-hyun, but she was too traumatized to register the mercy move. Then the plot twist, tears streamed down Kim's face. "It's over," he choked out, stunning everyone. He announced loud and clear that nobody touches the blue-eyed girl. She walks free. The onlookers down below took that as a victory speech against the big-eared beast. A wave of pure hype washed over them. Fists pumped the air as the crowd went wild, screaming for the young man to crush the villain into dust. They were rooting for him with zero hesitation. The dark-haired schemer couldn't believe his luck. The script had flipped completely. Just seconds ago, he was bracing for a mob lynching, expecting them to laugh as he died. But then it clicked. These people had no clue he was the one who summoned the troll in the first place. Playing the part, the hero declared he wouldn't let the Everton Guild suffer anymore, and asked to handle the goblin personally. Like a brave warrior, he shielded the shaking Ji-hyun with his back, commanding the ghoul to back off. The cold-blooded fighter announced the monster's end was near, but in reality, it was all part of Kim Chul-so's master plan. To the world, he was the selfless hero, risking it all to save the damsel from the beast. And oh, did he love it. He chuckled slyly behind his hands, already plotting his next move with the blonde. He whispered to the panicked Ji-hyun, promise to keep her mouth shut about him, and she lives. About him and the troll. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she nodded, swearing to take the secret to her grave. Smiling, the brunette composed himself. Time for the grand finale, no point dragging this out. Kim cranked the acting up to 11, shouting, "How dare you invade this village, foul beast!" And causing these people such pain, he faked a rage-filled scream that echoed through the street. As he bellowed that he'd end the scoundrel right there, the goblin summoner skill kicked in. Flash A golden collar materialized around the monster's neck, attached to a long, heavy chain. The strong man started dragging the pot-bellied creature away, giving the blonde space to breathe and feel safe again. Jumping down, the guy declared, "I won't forgive you." Meanwhile, the troll was visibly confused about what his master was doing. Bam! The monster got slammed face first into the asphalt, a little punishment for the show. Chul-so threw the heavy chain over his shoulder, walking tall. He knew exactly how to play the next scene. The crowd was floored. A high-tier skill like that, in a city full of newbies, impossible. It was a monster-taming masterpiece. The hero used his walk skill, boosting his pet's mood tenfold. Ji-hyun watched, stunned. The crowd nodded in agreement. No wonder the guild couldn't handle that thing. But not a single soul guessed the truth. The whole thing was a massive con. Or so one observer noted. It wasn't about the faction being weak, it was that literally no one else stood a ghost of a chance. The kid admitted he might not be able to drop the troll, but with his skills, he could definitely send it packing. Kim triggered his summoner perk, grabbing a roasted sausage to bait his pet. He chucked the snack deep into the distance, shouting to the crowd that this scumbag's run was officially over. The starving big-eared beast bolted for the grub, knowing every second counted. On edge, our hero commanded the locals to slam the city gates shut, locking that creature out for good. While the pot-bellied monster scrounged the dirt for that sausage, the crowd scrambled to seal the exit. Boom! The heavy gate crashed down, kicking up dust and leaving the lonely ghoul stranded outside. The panicked mob realized the nightmare was over, though it took a hot second for the reality to sink in. Wiping sweat from his brow, Kim played the perfect hero, declaring the town safe before asking if everyone was good. The crowd erupted in cheers. Crazy to think this hero was moments away from being branded a guild-destroying psychopath. But he clutched the win and salvaged the mess. Behind him, Ji-hyun stepped up, claiming she was the sole person who knew the secret link between him and that goblin, noting her squad was dead. Deep in thought, the guy snapped back to reality. He clocked the voice of the girl he saved but had zero clue what she was after. The blue-eyed stunner vowed to keep her word, and Chul-so realized he could definitely use this to his advantage. He heard that in Pascal, players had unlimited XP and total protection, hence the name Sacred Lands. The warrior threatened that if she was lying, he'd spawn camp her and kill her over and over again. Pale and shaking, the girl broke down, realizing this dude wasn't bluffing. Seconds later, she let out a blood-curdling scream, scattering the birds into the sky. Later, our MC face-planted onto the bed to chill, admitting this wasn't exactly what he wanted. Still, scoring a luxury room for playing the hero wasn't a bad trade-off. Pride kicked in, but then he tensed up, reflecting on the crazy stuff that just went down. He was too weak in the hidden dungeon back then, but if he got another shot, he'd save Catherine Lee, no question. Suddenly, he remembered the Goblin's Eye, that he looted from their lord, deciding to investigate its stats. He got this class because he vibed with the ghouls, and now the vile title was stacking up bonuses. Browsing the skill shop, he saw the high-tier stuff was locked. Only one option left, Rally, which sounded legit. So the brave warrior triggered the skill to test drive it. Bam! A long-nosed troll spawned right in his face, scaring the living daylights out of Kim Chul-so. Heart-pounding, he panicked if anyone saw this freak in here. It was game over for both of them. Suddenly, the innkeeper's voice cut through the door, asking if he was okay. He yelled a quick yeah before whispering a frantic apology to the goblin and hissing at it to lower the club. Chill, he realized this creature was just like him, while the thing kept grunting. Soon, the unlikely duo crashed in the same bed, the guy lamenting that this world was crawling with trash. Next morning he walked in, and the beefcake Patton spotted him instantly, calling him yesterday's freak. The bully recognized him as the savior of that guild member Everton, and the kid stuttered a confirmation. Stern Inhyuk pointed out the kid had zero incentive to help, since they were basically enemies, but thanked him anyway. The assassin in the back told Ji-hyun to chill out, as it was obvious the guy wasn't looking for a brawl. Then our hero dropped a bomb. He only saved them despite them trying to off him because he needed a favor. The shady guy smirked, admitting that regardless of the drama, they owed him big time, and they always pay their debts. The hero cut to the chase. He needed to hit the next zone as soon as possible, since he was already past level 30. Did they know the way? Stone-faced Ji-hyun caught the drift about Fiorindo and started to explain. But suddenly, a bland guy with a gray beard jumped in, claiming he held the key. That shady senior totally flipped the script, dropping the bombshell that he actually knew exactly how to navigate to the target zone. Our main guy was ready to throw hands for the earlier deception, but the old man panic apologized, covering his face like he'd been caught red-handed. He cleared his throat, admitting that since Chul-soo had soloed, that goblin, the kid, was basically a monster. He even hinted that our hero might be overpowering the rest of them, which clearly rubbed the hot-headed annihilator Patton the wrong way. Even though the emotionless protagonist knew that was a bit of a stretch, he couldn't help but analyze the situation. Kim realized that if that shadowy assassin had actually tried to end him yesterday, it would have been lights out in one hit, just like the rumors said. This rookie zone, the Lion, was a cluster of 5 standard dungeons. First up was a grassy field crawling with slugs. Then there was the mine framing its entrance with these gorgeous drifting snowflakes. You also had a creepy dark forest and other open-world-style dungeons that Kim could raid whenever he felt like it. The bald guy dropped some lore on the hero. If he wanted to escape this starter trap, he had to clear a raid location. The catch: these gates run on a timer with strict entry limits. The assassin chimed in, explaining that Lev's dungeon only spawns once a month, which is exactly why the whole squad was camping here. Suddenly the crowded room made sense, and our boy started feeling the pressure. Stern-faced Inhyuk broke the bad news. The raid zone opened yesterday, but that wretched goblin messed up their run. Word on the street was they were stuck until the next cycle, and Kim Chul-soo was absolutely floored to learn. He was grounded here for a whole month. There was no way he was wasting time in a dead-end city making zero cash, especially when his pet could crush harder dungeons in its sleep. Furious, he snatched the guy by his collar, screaming to know if he was seriously expected to burn his precious life away waiting. Humble Inhyuk just nodded, confirming the nightmare scenario, admitting the whole crew was salty about it but completely powerless. Fixing his long cloak, the stoic man coolly announced that the kid's debt was officially settled. The Everton Guild members decided to retreat to base, leaving the brooding brunette standing there like a statue. Blue-eyed Ji-hyun shot him a heartbreaking look of pity, but her hands were tied. She was too scared to say a word, so she just bolted after her team, abandoning the young man to his dark thoughts. In seconds, the building cleared out, leaving everyone lost in their own heads. But nobody spotted the hero's treacherous goblin lurking behind a wooden crate nearby, cooking up some shady scheme. The long-nosed troll smirked, plotting his next move. Fully aware he needed to stay off the radar, he scanned the area to ensure his stealth was holding up, and so far so good. Moments later, a crimson portal ripped open in the middle of the forest, kicking up wind and debris. Suddenly, the Everton squad got pinged with a system alert, stating the boss raid was live, despite the timer saying 30 days remained. Powerhouse Inhyuk smelled a rat, immediately suspicious of the glitch, but he held back his judgment. Kim Chul-soo got the exact same ping while standing alone in the wooden tavern, deep in his feelings. The shock hit him hard. He couldn't believe the path to the raid dungeon had just unlocked for everyone. Grinning like a maniac, the battle-hungry Patton hyped up the fact that the portal was open, surprise or not. It was insane. The boss raid cooldown vanished in one day, giving them a green light to the next level. The shadowy fighter asked for a head count inside, and Cinerule dropped the info that the top players had already wiped the floor with the location and advanced. The daredevil decided that this run would be Everton Guild, only showing zero fear. Suddenly, the main character stepped out of the shadows with a smirk, whispering that he knew exactly what was up. They had all been lying to his face. He should have clocked it the second they mentioned the 1-month wait. They snaked him just to get a head start. The enraged brunette cursed himself for being an idiot and trusting people. After all the trauma he'd survived, Ji-hyun, looking crushed, tried to de-escalate, swearing he had it twisted and that it wasn't a lie. Colin Hawk cut in, asking if Kim was tagging along, and the kid shot back that he wasn't going to sit on the sidelines while they filled their pockets. The stern commander demanded a quick briefing before deployment to avoid any rookie mistakes. He clarified there was only one lane leading to the raid. Boss Reeve territory meant one thing: they were jumping straight into the deep end the second they crossed the threshold. The squad leader figured it wouldn't be a total nightmare since Chul Su was underleveled, but hey, better safe than sorry. Patton was itching for a brawl, announcing that while their guildmaster might be absent, the Everton Guild was locked, loaded, and ready to rumble. The warriors stormed the portal entrance with zero chill, hyping each other up, bragging that they'd speedrun this monster in 10 seconds flat. In Hyuk kept his cool, wearing the smirk of a guy who knows he's the MVP. Strolling toward the entrance with icy confidence, the assassin noted that the faction members better bring their A-game. Meanwhile, the hero whispered to his troll stash behind a tree, telling it to hold position until the signal, just to keep things smooth. This daredevil knew the score betrayal was always on the table, just like last time, but he wasn't about to get played again. He was packing a top-tier healing crystal that would auto-resurrect a player, with 100% health the moment their HP hit zero. Suddenly the guy recalled he had already burned through that artifact before, but he shrugged it off and full sent it into the portal without a second thought. In a heartbeat, Kim Chul-Su spawned into a raid zone, where one wrong move meant game over. The dude froze, eyes popping out of his head as he realized the boss was standing right in his face. A level 40 steel giant was on a rampage, closing the gap and wrecking everything in its wake. Turns out the squad had seriously underestimated the difficulty spike, and now they were scrambling backward, just to stay breathing. A panicked Inwook demanded to know what Shinel's game plan was, but the old man, dripping with nervous sweat, admitted he was completely clueless. Ji-hyun, stressed to the max, screamed at the hero to quit spacing out and book it to the portal while the window was still open. Smiling like a maniac, the calm dude asked if they were trolling him, but the vibe was totally off. In a fit of rage, the warrior yelled back, asking if these spineless cowards seriously wanted to bail on a secret dungeon. Rumor had it, this wasn't just a standard death penalty if they got flattened by this rank 40 beast. The fearless Kim pointed out the gap was only 10 levels, claiming it wouldn't be as brutal as the final zone. He said they'd just cough up some blood and black out for a bit. Did these fools think epic loot just fell into their laps? The brave man gave the quitters permission to bounce, declaring he'd hog all the rewards for himself as he braced for the clash. The enraged fighter popped his rally skill and summoned a goblin, screaming that he was about to solo this giant right now. Under the digital starry sky, the pointy-eared summon was ready to assist its master instantly and prove its worth in the big leagues. It noticed the wind picking up but glitched out on the situation, so it just stood there like a statue. Meanwhile, the Steel Knight kept stomping toward the arrogant brunette, who didn't even flinch. The bitter player was banking on his powerful troll swooping in, but the enemy's iron fist was already descending. Splat, the fool got deleted, and Patton asked if this idiot was the same guy who struggled against a ghoul yesterday. Yoon-hyuk, totally unbothered, asked who cares about a dude who dug his own grave. Then he noticed the portal slammed shut, sending a wave of shock through the team. Serious mode Shinil explained that normal zones have a tiny chance to glitch out, turning a standard raid into a hidden dungeon. Now, it clicked why the boss was so OP, and they were locked in a deathmatch with no exit. Meanwhile, our main character in the real world was stressing out. After his avatar got wiped, though he was still strapped into his VR gear, the guy was absolutely furious that the giant one-shot him even though his level was over 30. Pulling up the stats, he instantly realized he forgot to allocate the goblin's skill points, basically nerfing his own win condition. He couldn't summon the troll, because the instance was locked and now his loot was on the line. The assassin, raging hard, ordered the squad to go on the offensive since they were trapped like rats. Back inside, Kim Chul-Su lay face down on the stone floor, but his eyes were wide open, creepy. Meanwhile, the relentless Ji-hyun fired off her tailwind arrow skill to knock the enemy back. Her clutch play doubled the movement speed for the whole crew, which was a massive buff. The old man shouted for Yoon-hyuk and Min-sun to aggro the giant and find a weak point, but the hero couldn't make out his mumbling. The fearless fighters didn't hesitate, launching into the air, just as the giant prepared to grind them into dust. Consumed by berserker rage, the monster unhinged its jaw. Launching a lethal counteroffensive, the ice-cold assassin and his partner moved through the shadows like a blur. Knowing every beast has a breaking point, they unleashed a 32-hit combo designed to shatter the monster's defenses. The plan was simple: spot the deepest gash to find the weak spot. But Min Sung's voice trembled, 0 damage dealt. This method used to wipe the floor with enemies, but this time completely useless. His partner stayed ice cold, narrowing it down. Option 1, this guy's defense stats are off the charts. Suddenly, the enraged titan swung a massive steel fist, aiming to flatten everyone in a single heartbeat. Total wipeout seemed inevitable, but the assassin juked the attack, leaping away at the final split second. Moving at god-tier speed, he carved a deep gash into the beast, sending a fountain of blood spraying across the arena. Jin Young's blade danced, but he realized the hard truth: light attacks were bouncing right off this tank. Time for Plan B. Turns out the steel giant possessed a trait called hatred for the weak. Massive clue dropped this passive skill, nullified any attack dealing less than 5% total damage. That's why the boss's HP bar hadn't budged. A panicked Patton shouted that he was the only one hitting hard enough, against a level 40 enemy maybe. But old man Shin Ryul cut in with a correction. There was a better DPS option on the field depending on the setup. He was talking about Ji Hyun. Her unique skill burned her own HP to draw the bowstring. The more life she sacrificed, the deadlier the shot. The brute didn't know her capabilities, but he stepped up. If you need time to charge, I'll buy it. The swordsman triggered his combat key, glowing with aura, as he prepared to face the beast head-on. He screamed a taunt at the monster, successfully pulling aggro as the beast lost all self-control. Massive fists rained down on him. Meanwhile, Kim, still face-planting on the floor, mentally labeled Patton a total moron. Guy should be sprinting for the exit, not trolling the raid boss. The Titan hammered the stone floor, pulverizing the terrain, in a desperate bid to squash these puny humans. The swordsman tanked the hit for just 1,000 damage, smirking as he called the enemy soft. He kept roasting the giant, while the cunning Shin Ryul hovered behind, begging Patton to stay focused. This wasn't a game. The old man warned that one slip-up meant game over for everyone. The strongman locked in. It was time to execute the strategy. A crucial skill flared to life. It linked damage with the target. Whoever had the bigger health bar took the heavier hit. The hero currently in spirit form watched with anxiety. These Everton Guild members were low-level scrubs with 0 hidden classes. Inhyuk kept it grim. Their assassin squad would shred the giant's armor, using strictly passive skills. Their weak point elimination chipped away 2% of the enemy's defense per hit, a solid debuff. Without blinking, the fearless crew dove in to flank the enemy from the rear. Chul-So was baffled by their raw power. Shin Ryul and Patton held the front line while Ji-hyun rained death from the back with her bow. The nervous rookie realized a nightmare scenario: if the party cleared the boss now, he'd get 0 XP and 0 loot. Since the system flagged him as dead, suddenly the boss launched an iron fist at the fearless annihilator. But the big guy froze, sweat dripping down his face, realizing the beast wasn't looking at him anymore. The red-eyed monster had locked onto a different target. The furious tank roared, trying to pull the fight back to himself. A massive hand crushed the stone slab, spiderwebbing the ground in a display of power that looked almost cartoonish. The protagonist popped a restoration stone. Time to carry these losers, seeing as he was the highest level in the room. System prompt. The superior crystal grants a full revive with 100% HP upon death. Kim Chul-So smirked. The main event is fashionably late. Instantly, the steel giant snapped its gaze to him. The enemy triggered superficial destruction, instantly deleting Seo Ji-hyun and the speedster, Min Sung, from the fight. The rest of the squad got ragdolled across the room before they could even process the blitz attack. Only Patton remained standing, gripping his sword with white knuckles burning with a need for vengeance. The Annihilator lost it, screaming at the iron bastard for daring to touch his crew. A tense Shin Ryul shouted for focus, warning him not to fall for the giant's mind games. No hesitation. The brave warrior triggered his ultimate and swung, aiming to chop this monster into scrap metal. But out of nowhere, the boss claps back hard, hitting the tank for nearly 4,000 damage instantly. The old-timer realizes his clever little trick just backfired, and suddenly, the redhead is face-planting into the dirt. Stone cold dead. A few seconds later, Kim Chul-So stares blankly at the kill feed. Patton and Cyril are gone. Our hero is sweating bullets, screaming that his self-revive isn't why they're losing, he was just trying to get back in the fight. Inhyuk slides out of the shadows like a ghost, gripping a wicked curved dagger ready to clutch up. He knows the game mechanics perfectly. Monsters love to squash healers and archers, but usually ignore the tanks. But that battle cry messed up the aggro tables, and the boss smashed Patton instead of the raid leader. The second that ignored player revived it, wiped the boss's threat meter, and the squad got one-shotted before they could even blink. Adrenaline pumping, Ji-hyun asks for orders, practically begging to let an arrow fly. She's fueling the shot with her own HP. The more life she sacrifices, the bigger the damage multiplier. Her teammate yells to chill out if she fires now. She ruins the whole setup. Patience is key. They haven't fully stacked the assassin's armor break, yet they need that extra 2% shred to kill this thing. The warrior charges in, vowing to turn the steel giant into scrap metal, screaming at the girl to hold her spell. He warns them that without the blonde's rush attack, they have absolutely 0% chance of winning this raid. She stays laser-focused while a confused Kim Chul-So awkwardly asks if he can do anything to help. She shuts him down cold. Without his goblin, he's useless, so he better just sit this one out. Then she throws shade, telling the kid he's just dead weight, totally shaking his confidence. He can feel the hate burning in her eyes. In his head, he knows she's blaming him for this entire mess. Specifically, that he couldn't bring his troll pet into the raid dungeon, leaving them short-handed. He forces a bitter smile. They treat him like trash, even though they're desperate for his help. Fine. He decides to let them rot. Meanwhile, the steel giant locks onto the harbinger of death. Just as predicted, the brute ignores the tank and goes straight for the squishy archer from the Eveston guild. Dagger clenched tight, the bitter fighter screams, to draw aggro. He's the opponent, not the girl. The daredevil triggers his dual blade skill, slicing through for nearly 2,000 damage in a single burst. It's a super risky play, but it works. The massive monster is absolutely furious now. The giant roars in pain, while the nimble fighter goes full parkour scrambling up the ledges. He's kiting perfectly to avoid getting squashed, thinking, yeah, get mad, you big pile of junk. He closes the distance and lands a nasty strike right to the throat. Blood sprays everywhere. The warrior sticks the superhero landing blades ready without a single scratch. He stares down the iron giant stone-faced and ready for round 2. The only way to win is massive burst damage, and In-hyuk is executing the strat perfectly. The shadow assassin calculates he needs 3 full combos to pull the threat completely off his team. Boom. System notification confirms. The steel giant has finally locked on to the cold-blooded fighter, but he's running on fumes, only 3 stamina points left to hit the weak spots. He has to make every hit count. He just needs to buy a little time, so he gets cocky and starts taunting the boss. A quest pops up: dodge every attack for the next 3 seconds or it's game over. Then disaster strikes. He freezes. The system flashes red, insufficient mana. The boss sees the opening and moves to crush the annoying fly that's been stinging him. Kim Chul-soo watches from the sidelines, jaw on the floor, unable to believe it all went wrong so fast. Moments later, the brunette is standing over In-hyuk's corpse. His dead eyes look absolutely haunted. The furious survivor screams that he should have stayed dead instead of respawning and ruining the run. Their overconfidence just doomed them. Ji-hyun screams right back, voice cracking with stress. She yells that his resurrection reset the fight mechanics, and now he's trying to shift the blame to someone else. They're literally butting heads, screaming in each other's faces, getting absolutely nowhere. They're so busy fighting, they forget one tiny detail: the enraged giant behind them is still very much alive and roaring. Terror seized the duo as they screamed, realizing they were trapped with zero exit strategy. The behemoth shifted focus, locking its sights on the Deathbringer, whom it wanted deleted from the battlefield permanently. Fuming, Ji-hyun started drawing her bowstring taut, gritting out that she wasn't fully charged, but this was her only window to fire. Desperate, she shot a glance at Kim Chul-soo, who was just chilling there, scanning the digital scoreboard with a weird, twisted grin. The hero casually asked if the rumors were true. Was she really glued to the spot while recharging her stamina? Blue Eyes couldn't figure out his angle, fighting every instinct to keep her cool amidst the absolute madness. Tears welling up, she screamed at him to back off, hands shaking so bad she nearly dropped her weapon. But our cunning hero didn't listen. He scooped her right onto his shoulders, knowing she needed 10 more seconds to recharge. Meanwhile, the steel titan was smashing the floor into dust, pulverizing the stone slabs. They barely dodged the impact. Ji-hyun was totally bewildered. How was Kim moving as fast as the late Yoon-hyuk? Here's the kicker: our confident hero had dumped every single stat point into agility. Not even assassins go that hard. Plus, he snagged a bonus point from that goblin, who he was still beefing with, by the way. Finally, the Deathbringer was locked and loaded. She begged him not to rush her one miss, and it's game over. But the kid just casually reminded her that the Eveston Guild was racking up a serious debt with him. Poor Blue Eyes was struggling to focus, her hands trembling uncontrollably. He kept tallying the tab they owed him for the blood he spilled earlier, and for that top-tier healing crystal. Suddenly, the iron golem froze, scanning for the targets that were blurring around the arena. The beast was getting ticked off. It was used to squashing bugs in mere seconds. The archer triggered Death Arrow just as they slipped into the giant's blind spot, giving them a tactical edge. But the girl was hanging by a thread, literally 1% health remaining, and Chul-soo yelled at her to keep going. That's when the enraged titan unleashed its ultimate world destroyer, which was straight-up heavy artillery. It slammed both fists down, triggering a massive shockwave that decimated everything. Teeth gritted and sweating bullets, Kim realized the truth: the boss had been sandbagging a powerful ability to use as a last resort. Panic set in as he remembered Ji-hyun was at 1% HP, and he was sitting at just 100 health points after his self-res. One hit, and they're both toast. She screamed out, too much flying rubble. She couldn't get a clean lock on the target. Sweat dripping down her face, she froze. She couldn't take the shot blindly. The difficulty just spiked to nightmare mode. Suddenly, our eccentric hero got hit with a warm, fuzzy memory of playing with his friends. Totally the wrong time for nostalgia, right? But then a green hand with gnarly, bony fingers crept from behind the wall unnoticed by the duo. Spoiler alert, it was that long-nosed goblin. It was itching for action, stepping up to make a clutch save for its master. Chul-soo yelled out in relief. It felt like a week had passed since he cast Rally to summon that little guy. Keeping her cool, the female subordinate scanned the perimeter. Her mind raced. How did a ghoul manage to rip through the dungeon's reality just to breach the interior? Zero hesitation. The troll snatched up a massive wooden club, throwing his body into the line of fire to become a living shield for the squad. Talk about taking one for the team. Meanwhile, the enraged monster was writhing in agony pain, radiating through every inch of its distorted frame. But the beast was running on fumes, its movements jerky and stiff. A dark-haired fighter smirked cold as ice. Pretty loud last words for a hidden boss, he quipped. He effortlessly juggled the hyped-up goblin like a toy. Showtime, folks. The main event we've been waiting for is finally here. Right on cue, the archer let fly, a fully charged arrow of death, screaming through the air dead set on the target's skull. Our daredevil launched herself upward, defying gravity, just to get a front-row seat to the carnage. Boom. Seconds later, a gaping hole punched through the steel giant's chassis, the light in its eyes fading fast. The behemoth crashed down, pulverizing the stone slabs into dust. Silence fell as the squad just stared at the fallen titan. Ping blue holographic windows popped up everywhere. Hidden dungeon iron giant's lair cleared. Ji Hyun's jaw hit the floor. She couldn't process it. Did they seriously just conquer the raid zone? No way. But the stats don't lie. Her combat log flashed gold, 4 levels gained instantly. She was rocking the title of rank 31 archer now. Kim Chul-so dragged himself up. His legs were numb, screaming in protest, but he kept his mouth shut and his face unreadable. The protagonist snagged 3 levels nice, but that was it. No loot, no bonus. The disappointment was palpable. The hot-headed rookie snapped. He started screaming for his payout right then and there. I put my life on the line for this battle. Pay up. A notification chimed, all deceased characters resurrected. Serious-faced In Hyuk scanned the group. Everyone in one piece. Patton looked wrecked. He spat a wad of bloody saliva. Taste copper, he grunted. If the level gap was any wider, we'd be toast. Suddenly, the fighters clocked the treacherous Sinrail acting weird. Dude wasn't breathing, and his eyes were rolling around in their sockets like loose marbles. Total system error. Whack. A solid slap to the back of the head rebooted him. With a heavy sigh, the team leader shifted gears to the real business. Trying to keep things professional, he turned to Kim Chul. So, care to explain what just went down? The kid went feral, backing away. Stay back, don't touch me, the assassin frowned. What is up with this psycho? Ji Hyun was stuttering, too shook to speak. Then the harbinger of death got a harsh reality check from the system. Hidden class conditions, failed. The blonde looked devastated. Panic started creeping into her eyes. She bit her lip, forcing the tears back. It wasn't just about surviving the hidden dungeon. Survival wasn't enough. The hero realized they were stuck. No advancement. Until they unlocked specific triggers in this hellhole. They were hard-locked until the boss went down, taking out the big bad after hitting rare rank. That felt like the intended progression path. All eyes on Kim. He was practically vibrating, sweat dripping, waiting for the payout he'd been obsessing over. Ji Hyun stepped up, voice shaky. We fought together. We should split the loot after a team meeting, right? The greedy brunette went full goblin mode, screeching like a banshee. Mine, all mine. I ain't sharing a single coin with anyone. The guild members behind him exchanged looks. Who was this guy really? None of the math added up. In Hyuk cut in voice stern. Look, Chulso saved our bacon twice. Let's not forget that. We got what we came for. Let's not be cheapskates about the bonus loot. A few yards away, Sinrail's boots hit the dirt. He was coming to gears, turning in his head. The grim old-timer shook his head. Not worth the drama, he grumbled, giving his club a menacing swing. The shadow assassin sneered. You scumbag. The hot-headed hero yelled back. Tell me something I don't know. That old snake stabbed me in the back twice. The leader stayed ice cold. Kid, if we wanted you dead, you'd be a corpse already. We have the firepower. One fighter looked confused. Wait, aren't we handing over the Iron Giant's bow? That's a legendary asset for the faction. The greedy brat snatched up every shiny object in reach, looking ready to bolt. Joke was on him. He wasn't even an archer. The system flashed a red warning. Class mismatch. Cannot sell. Unique items. Cannot equip. Useless junk to him. But the brunette clutched it tight just because everyone else wanted it. In Hyuk sighed. Stop acting like a toddler. Give the bow to Ji Hyun. A sly, fox-like grin spread across the kid's face. Fine, I'll drop the artifact, he bargained, eyes glinting. But I want a trade. And trust me, it's a non-exchangeable item, making the item priceless, though the stats were kinda vague. Chuckling, the hero dropped the bomb. They'd have to buy that S-tier loot right back from him if he just swiped it. Sinro froze, realizing this scammer had waited for a respawn just to flip the artifact. Watching that kid cackle like a maniac, the stoic In Hyuk mentally noted the resemblance to a long-nosed goblin. The guy had zero clue the ghoul was lurking behind the rocks, totally unaware he and Kim Chulso were squatted up now. Meanwhile, Ji Hyun, who was in on the secret, kept her mouth shut, adjusting her strap and aggressively stirring her drink. She complained that the Iron Giant's bow weighed a ton, playing the I'm just a delicate flower card. The hero thanked the Evaton Guild for the easy business, while the assassin admitted the kid knew how to be a total menace. The fighter asked where he was headed next, and the guy replied like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The weirdo claimed he was going off-grid where nobody could bother him, and his buddy called him strange, but didn't press it. Instead, he decided it was a solid plan and asked the squad if they were ready to roll. Finally, the blue-eyed blonde flashed a sweet smile at Kim Chulso. She was totally crushing on him, not that she'd ever admit it. Left alone with just the goblin, the kid finally caught his breath plotting his next move. He scored the Thief's Glove's one-time steal ability but useless against mobs with a higher level cap than him. The real jackpot was the purified steel he snatched while those faction noobs were too busy drooling over weapons. The hyped brunette checked his inventory 3 chunks of crushed metal. He figured Everton crossed him first, so it was fair game. Cut to Phoenix Elbasar, a sun-drenched village crawling with players flexing in heavy iron armor. Kim was shook he'd never seen so many high-level players in one spot, wondering how much cash they raked in from farming. The greedy MC could practically smell the bag already. But first, the grind. He needed new gear desperately. Still traumatized by getting one-shotted by a monster 9 levels below him. The main character had been rocking the same trash armor since tier 3, so no wonder he was squishy. Nervous Chulso stared at his stats. Negative defense seriously when the goblin started yanking on his pants. The kid warned he'd punish the little guy if he caused a scene in the lobby, but the goblin wasn't trolling. Meters away, the rookie froze. A massive white-furred beast was staring daggers at them. Terrified, he asked why a raid boss was chilling in town and begged his slobbering goblin for backup. Suddenly, a white-haired girl spoke up, noting she'd never seen someone summon a goblin before. The level 76 summoner perched on top of the fluffy nightmare guessed Kim was the one controlling the ghoul. Our stunned hero couldn't process a petite girl riding that tank of a creature. The lady claimed Michelle was a good girl in town, while the panicked boy pointed out the thing was literally drooling, sweating bullets. Kim realized this lady was cracked, and that he didn't need to PvP her to figure that out. It was obvious the Everton Guild and the other factions would get absolutely folded if they tried to fight her. The polite queen called him sweet child and asked for his tag. He introduced himself as Kim Chulso, but plot twist. She was actually vibing with the goblin standing next to him. With a pout, the blonde lady asked if the cute pet really didn't have a name. The tense hero didn't see the point in naming a summon, and definitely didn't see the cute factor. The beauty started petting Michelle, dropping some wisdom that one-sided relationships are toxic. She pointed out the troll was already squaring up against his master because he didn't even name it before demanding protection. The charmer hoped Chulso wouldn't be so basic next time they met, flashing a smile. The impulsive brunette claimed he was cool with the big-eared freak and brushed it off. A bit later, he chatted up a gray-haired man who looked like his eyes were going to pop out of his skull. The rude Humphrey roasted the kid's gear, calling it total junk, and Kim yelled back that he was literally there to upgrade. Soon, the burly man slapped a steel breastplate on the counter for 350 gold, swearing it was the drip he needed. Because even with a max-level goblin, it's game over if he, with the summoner dead, he was a sitting duck. Zero hesitation, the MC snagged that gear instantly. Fingers tapped the hollow screen to lock it in. Humphrey, looking grumpy as ever, bragged he forged this item from premium steel, specifically for total noobs like Kim. And wow, did our boy live down to the reputation. 2 minutes later, he strapped on the chest piece expecting a power-up. Instead, I can't move. Humphrey just barked a laugh. Morons like you live longer when you're essentially a statue. Then the hot-headed merchant offered to buy back the scrap for 30 gold coins. Chulso looked at him like he was insane. No deal. Suddenly, a massive exclamation mark popped up over the blacksmith's head. Classic quest alert. Before Kim could process it, Humphrey exploded. He couldn't find his essential gear. While our hero stood there clueless, the blacksmith went full panic mode. His hammer was gone. No hammer meant no forging. Kim, trying to be helpful, pointed at a spare tool on the bench. Not the same, the eccentric snapped. He demanded his specific hammer back right now. The bitter old man was sure he left the sledgehammer in the dungeon tunnel near the village entrance. Ding quest accepted. Find Humphrey's hammer. The reward, unlocking material processing for high-tier armor crafting. Kim intensely scanned the quest details on his HUD. Realizing this was a game-changer, he finally clicked why gear crafted from hidden boss mats cost a literal fortune. Refined resources like crushed and purified steel were gold dust. Turn those into equipment, you're talking god-tier stats. A sly grin spread across his face. Ready to risk it all for the loot, he prepped for the dungeon. Suddenly, another system ping confirmed the quest was active. Kim was feeling himself confident he didn't need to babysit any teammates. Since a party would just slow him down, he started fantasizing about speedrunning this easy zone in under 30 minutes. Then the blacksmith screamed, "Why are you just standing there, you fool?" Kim spun around, trying to figure out the sudden drama. While trying to play it cool, Humphrey demanded to come along to get his hammer now. Then, the system dropped a bomb. If Humphrey dies, mission failed. Kim stared in horror. He had to escort a level 13 NPC, total dead weight. While Humphrey kept whining, Chulso decided to skip the trash mobs and rush straight to the boss. He had the speed stats for it. Without a word, he bolted forward, leaving the loudmouth in the dust. Seconds later, alert Humphrey drew monster aggro. Kim froze. He reread the notification, hoping it was a glitch. It wasn't. The monsters were swarming the grumpy blacksmith, who was flailing around helplessly. Panic set in. Kim planted his feet and screamed for his goblin summon, his last hope. The big-eared savage didn't hesitate. He launched himself into the fray to save the master, totally locked in. One hit, the long-nosed heavy hitter dealt massive critical damage before the mobs even knew what hit them. Total chaos. Slime splattered the ground mixed with rat claws and… Wait, the blacksmith's hammer. It was all scattered. Yet the bearded weirdo puffed out his chest, claiming he scared the monsters off, while Chulso looked ready to murder him. Suddenly, the blacksmith stiffened, scanning the shadows. Something was wrong. Enemies, Humphrey shrieked, turning tail to run. Kim seriously considered letting him die. He wanted to order the goblin to babysit the fool so he could solo the boss, but realized the NPC was too squishy to survive alone. Change of plans, he ordered the goblin to slaughter everything. From here on out, it was the only way. Meanwhile, Humphrey kept yapping about how these monsters had the nerve to infest the Phoenix El Bazaar and steal his hammer. The furious blacksmith charged in blindly, but the goblin was faster. He blitzed past, vaporizing every rat in their path with massive damage output. Humphrey, being totally blind to reality, thought he was doing the killing. Complete delusion. Haven't unleashed my power like that in years, he bragged, while awkwardly stumbling around. Kim smirked. It was going to take longer this way, but keeping the NPC alive was the priority. Humphrey was confused why the rats were ignoring him. Kim just rolled his eyes and pointed out, that wasn't the vibe at all. Suddenly, the big guy unleashes a savage battle cry, trying to pull aggro on every creature in the room. He screams about his glory days as a mountain warrior, but looming nearby is a creepy skeleton, sitting on a throne rocking a golden crown. The thing is caked in dust, but in a split second, the undead king wakes up. Its jaw unhinges with a terrifying screech, and those empty sockets suddenly glow with crimson-red LEDs. Humphrey's noise is so loud it wakes up ancient spirits, while Chulso just facepalms, wondering why this idiot couldn't just stealth past them. Our MC is fuming, hoping this moron is done with his little performance because nobody has time for this drama. He has to summon the goblin again, who stands there chilling, tossing a stone in his hand like a baseball pitcher warming up. The troll grips the rock tight, bony fingers, locking in, waiting for the perfect frame to let it fly. 2 seconds later, boom. He pivots his hips and launches that cobblestone with sniper precision. The rock breaks the sound barrier, shattering every skeleton in the vicinity and dealing massive AoE damage. Cut to 3 hours later. Our main character realizes the real boss fight of this dungeon isn't the monsters. It's dragging this crazy blacksmith Humphrey along. The alert young man picks up a weird noise, ding, he just hit level 37, when suddenly, the nervous blacksmith screams at him to run. He yells, it's a trap, just as ominous yellow lights start blinking in the dark corners of the hallway. Major red flag. Suddenly, 3 golden arrows shoot out of the wall, aiming to one-shot anyone in their path. Even with maxed out gear, that's lethal. Terrified, the dark-haired boy dives behind his drooling goblin, who just keeps that goofy smile on his face. The goblin has zero fear, but the young man is confused. Why did the trap trigger now? He can't figure out the trap's mechanic yet, but he doesn't have time to overthink it. Meanwhile, the rude Humphrey is stepping on a skeleton's skull, but his HP bar is dropping fast. Turns out he tanked one of those arrows to the chest. He's critically wounded, cursing his enemies through the pain. Kim watches in shock as the poison spreads instantly, and the big brute collapses like a sack of bricks. Adrenaline kicks in. The enraged fighter sprints forward at insane speed, swearing he's going to kill that undead menace all over again. He blames the skeleton for ruining the run. High above, a shadowy figure with glasses watches the boy's heels spark as he runs. From his vantage point, the cool-headed mystery man smirks. He finally tracked down the legendary Kim Chulso. Fast forward. The angry fighter drags himself back to Humphrey's smithy. The big man eyes Chulso's gear and calls it total garbage. Then his mood flips 180 degrees, and he starts thanking the boy for retrieving his precious hammer. While casually crushing the goblin's head with one hand, the blacksmith makes a weird face trying to intimidate the guy who annoyed him, but he's actually stunned. The kid completed the impossible quest, meaning he can finally craft gear from the boss materials. The insolent smith calls the boy insane, revealing the hammer dropped after the very first kill. Talk about RNG luck. He fires up the forge, lecturing Chul, so that top-tier gear requires the blacksmith's blood, sweat, and tears. He manages to smelt a high-quality steel alloy, hammering it into shape with rhythmic precision. The strong man boasts that god-tier equipment is only born from the hands of a reborn master blacksmith. The young man roasts him immediately, pointing out that the guy isn't even sweating, which explains why the quality is usually trash. Internal monologue time. Chulso notes, This armor is crafted from the drops of that hidden dungeon boss they raided. He's actually hyped. Finally, he gets to equip his first piece of rare-grade gear. It grabs the attention of the crowd instantly. We're talking light blue steel armor with a serious glow-up. The stats are broken, it grants a chance to trigger destruction of the sky and earth on impact. Gray-haired Humphrey acts all noble, saying he won't charge for it this time, but asks the kid not to get too sappy with the thank yous. Like Chulso was going to thank him anyway. But suddenly, glitch effect. Player kill mode activates. The vibe turns dark instantly. A stranger in a black business suit jumps him out of nowhere. Chulso barely manages to dodge the ambush. The stern attacker admits the kid is strong enough to beat a woman half to death. At first, Kim just brags about his dexterity stats, then yells, "What the heck are you talking about? What woman?" The gentleman drops the bomb. Chulso was in his lady's last squad, and now he's acting innocent. He points a sharp blade right at Chulso's face, screaming that this scumbag is pretending he doesn't know the beautiful Catherine. That name hits like a truck. The young man freezes, digging through his memories. The puzzle pieces click. The main character realizes he's talking about that sorceress. It was her. The girl from the mine dungeon way back at the start of their run. The one who snaked him with her crew and left him for dead like trash. Kim snapped, flipping the script. Lee stabbed him in the back first. He was the real victim here, not her. The stoic guy wasn't buying that sob story. He had receipts, and he was ready to drop them. He pointed out the obvious: our hero is standing there healthy, while his lady is stuck in a coma with zero signs of waking up. The brunette froze, jaw hitting the floor. Absolute shock. He knew the Geiger messed people up, mental, physical, the works, but he never calculated that she'd end up a total vegetable. Panicking, he screamed that the monster was to blame, not him. He swore his hands were clean when it came to hurting Catherine. Blade drawn, the opponent ignored the excuses. He kept piling on the guilt, locking them in a deadly standoff. Lunging forward, the man roared that Miss Lee's spot, as the Samyang heir was hanging by a thread because of this. But then pure confusion hit the defender's face. His attack landed, but did zero damage, not even a scratch. Kim Cholsu's expression darkened into a nightmare. Time to unleash the goblin. He pressed again, voice cold. How is the chairman's daughter really doing? They were talking about a global empire here, cars, semiconductors, tech. A literal titan of industry. Word on the street. Land a job there and you're set for life. A true golden ticket. But here's the sketchy part. Catherine Lee partied up with our hero, blacked out, and woke up in a hospital bed. Icy cool, the man grilled him. Did a level 80 monster really jump her in an open dungeon? Sweating bullets and forcing a smile, the kid stammered. Maybe she just couldn't handle the brutal L she took. The suit narrowed his eyes. You're rank 3. How do you walk away from that when she didn't? It didn't add up. She's pushing level 40. She's a pro. Yet the kid stands there without a bruise. He kept insisting he only survived by clutching a class change to a hidden role at the last second. Even with an army of doctors, she was fading fast. Critical condition. If she'd been in Kim's shoes during that fight, she would have been toast ages ago. The skepticism lingered. Does a class change fix everything? The kid scratched his head tense. He deflected, asking if there was even a 1% chance she'd pull through. The man sighed. Best doctors on the payroll, but they're stumped. They've hit a wall. Sitting around waiting wasn't an option. He pitched a crazy idea: if the game broke her, then the game has to fix her. Fight fire with fire. The man pushed his glasses up, calculating. It's risky, he muttered, but worth a shot. The hero recalled reading about a coma patient, written off by everyone until Brother of Heaven brought him back from the brink. Grabbing the man's hand, the liar leaned in. It's a Hail Mary, but we have to take it to save Lee. The man just stared at him, speechless, trying to process the audacity. Internally, the kid was sweating. He'd been playing this guy like a fiddle the entire time. But his acting was Oscar-worthy. Cut to the game world, a white-haired beauty materialized right in front of him. She looked tragic. Stunned, he wondered, did the chairman really force a coma patient to log in? That's desperate. He knew the score. If they caught him lying, they'd silence him permanently. Game over for real. No respawns for that. The brunette circled Catherine's motionless avatar, muttering that this was uncharted territory. Still, he hyped himself up. He realized he was the only one stepping up to save the Samyang heiress. That counted for something. The optics were perfect. Everyone could see him bending over backward to help Miss Lee. He traced a finger along her jawline, deciding to leave her with a little parting wisdom before he logged off. Making a goofy face, Kim whispered, "Better brace yourself, Sleeping Beauty. Things are about to get wild." He started giggling, calling himself a total genius, while the chairman's daughter stood there frozen like a statue. He knew he had to carry her literally, but how do you move a player who can't even walk? A twisted light bulb flickered in the clever fighter's brain while his goblin minion stood by tongue, lolling out like a deranged puppy, ready to follow any command. A few seconds later, Catherine started moving, and Cholso figured that if he just dragged her along, the whole mess would sort itself out. The long-nosed little freak looped a rope around the girl's neck, and marched forward, and surprisingly, she kept pace without missing a beat. The spectacle absolutely horrified the onlookers, but our hero just kept chanting his mantra, "Get the job done no matter what." He dragged along people close to this lady, and the crowd couldn't wrap their heads around treating a loved one like cattle. The tense brunette realized he was backed into a corner. This was turning into a replay of the disaster in the last village. Suddenly, a gray-bearded geezer materialized next to Kim out of nowhere and beckoned him closer. The bald senior waved a frantic hand, no time to explain, and the young man decided to roll with it. Dragged into a shady alley, the brave man admitted he didn't think he'd run into this treacherous snake again. The old man begged, "Just use my name," but the daredevil wasn't buying it. "Trust you." "Yeah, right." He then demanded the dirt on what the Everton Guild was cooking up this time. His shady counterpart swore that last time was just a raid gathering a rare event for that chaotic faction. Meanwhile, the goblin kept being a nuisance, sticking out his tongue and making weird noises. Chulso cut to the chase. "Is it true you're some kind of snitch?" He demanded the intel right then and there. But Senior insisted they needed to move to a different spot to discuss the Firendel region safely. Slipping behind a barely visible banner, the elderly gentleman urged them to follow to avoid any heat. Bam! The fighter cracked him over the head a few times, classic persuasion tactics. Sporting fresh bruises, the cunning old fox admitted he actually didn't know much about the zone. But here's the kicker. Unlike Riva, the local boss is a super rare spawn once a month max, and only if specific conditions trigger. The old guy noticed the dungeon crawl was dragging on, and our young hero was starting to radiate pure rage. So he asked, "Why the rush?" Sweat dropping. Kim claimed it was about the cash, conveniently leaving out the part where he's surviving on bribes, since he still didn't trust this guy as far as he could throw him. The serious man dropped some wisdom, even if the warrior wanted the hard zones. Patience was key since he was a newbie in town. Rumor had it there's a castle in Phoenix, Elbasari, where the main quest goes down. We're talking elite, high-level player territory. The guy was thunderstruck. Main quests. He'd totally suppressed those memories, pushing them to the back of his mind. Suddenly, he was shouting like a maniac. Completing those missions meant unlocking the high-tier zones. Senior looked like he was about to have a heart attack. The hyped-up youngster turned to his goblin Showtime buddy. "Let's work some magic, no time to waste." He shoved the old man aside. "Sorry, Grandpa," leaving him in the dust without a word. The troll stood there grinning like an idiot, still clutching the rope wrapped around his finger. But when the brunette whipped around, his face went pale. The other end of the leash was empty. Where the hell was the girl? Catherine had already been snatched. Two random creeps were dragging her off, joking that she would definitely have a better time with them than with that fool. One guy with a hideous mustache couldn't stop ogling her hair, suggesting they call security to protect such a beauty, while his buddy muttered that she was fine right where she was. Chulso panicked. If that unconscious girl took even one hit, game over. She dies, and it's all on him. Right then, her stern guardian blew up his comms demanding to see her, breathless. The young man deflected. "Kinda busy right now." The impulsive brunette shouted he'd show her later, and the glasses-wearing handler lost it, calling him crazy. Connection cut. The furious gentleman slammed the table, calling the kid a brat, and regretting he ever trusted him. The elderly chairman stepped in, telling his colleague to back off, and apologized for the stress. Knight Kamoon wasn't having it. Catherine was the heir to the Semyon organization. No rando player should be touching her. The brunette demanded to know why the chairman entrusted his daughter to a stranger, and the gentleman dropped the harsh truth. He knew the treatment was hopeless. He shocked his subordinate, admitting that, even if something went wrong in that 1 in 100 chance, the outcome wouldn't change. Catherine's only real choice was Heaven's Gate. Inside this game, the poor girl was finally free. The chairman believed a virtual fantasy world was a hell of a lot better than staring at a hospital ceiling for her final moments. Back in the game, Kim and the Goblin tore through the streets, and the nervous hero cursed the devs. Why does this game have a stamina and shortness of breath mechanic? He had to find the beauty now. Standing in the middle of this massive village, our fighter freezes, replaying the chaos of the last few hours. He pieces the mental puzzle together and hits a realization he's completely innocent. He didn't do a thing wrong, yet the system dings he somehow scored a point. Nice. He checks his skill tree and sees a new unlock, so he dives into the details. The first option is a total joke Goblin heal. Seriously, healing a monster that hasn't even bled is useless. But the next skill, Goblin Toss. Now that sounds promising. Launching his minion in a specific direction, the daredevil grins. That is exactly the kind of chaotic trick he needs right now. No hesitation. He flexes his steel gauntlet and summons his loyal freak of nature, the focused warrior, grips the reckless troll's skull like a bowling ball prepping for launch. Chulso narrows his eyes, scanning the horizon to calculate the perfect trajectory. With a violent, sharp torque of his body, Kim Chulso swings and releases. He watches intently as his minion goes airborne. The slobbering monster is ready to do whatever the boss wants, bracing for impact. He's soaring at a bird's eye view, But there's zero fear. He's just shielding his eyes from the sun, enjoying the flight. Soon, the satisfied hero gets the signal Catherine Lee has been spotted. Chulso relaxes, letting his guard down, sticking out a gross tongue. The frightening little creep starts giggling maniacally, crashing the party to retrieve the lovely lady. But ahead, two goons are standing over the paralyzed girl, too busy drooling over her beauty to notice the threat. These scumbags recognize the fool, who was with her earlier, but they sneer, promising she's never going back to him. Our warrior snaps screaming, demanding to know who they are and what trash they're spewing. The air crackles, a fight is absolutely inevitable. The guy with the ugly mustache claims they're just two handsome knights whose hobby is rescuing damsels in distress. Kim tells him to shut his mouth. The enemy calls him a chatterbox and lunges, rushing into the attack, with a flurry of martial arts strikes. But the scene is confusing. Chulso stands frozen in place, radiating pure confidence. Why? Because within seconds his goblin wrecks the two fools, blasting them with choking black dust. As they cough and wheeze, the proud warrior laughs loud and hard, shouting to ask how it feels to get owned by the guy they called a fool. Dead silence. But the noise attracts an ironclad guard, standing nearby, who instantly goes on high alert. Acting fast, the hero hogties the immobile Catherine Lee again, dragging her along the ground by a heavy rope. The stern law enforcer barks a vicious shout. You think you can get away with a crime like this? The young man tries to play it cool, arguing that those two attacked him first. He knows the cop won't buy it, so he makes a grim choice: take out the guard before backup arrives. The nimble goblin coils to strike, but suddenly, a wild interruption. The cheerful old-timer Cinderella pops up, slapping a hand on Kim's shoulder. "I've been looking everywhere for you, kid," he says, leaving Chulso totally confused. The man whispers that killing a cop leads to messy consequences, so they need to work together. The cunning schemer starts buttering up the guard, talking about how hard the officer works day and night. The fighter watches, wondering what the old guy is hiding behind his back. Suddenly, the bearded man whips out a heavy sack of gold, shocking the officer, whose eyes bulge out of his head. But twist, the knight grabs the old man by the collar and drags him away, shouting, "How dare you bribe an honest man?" The elderly gentleman gets a system notification: favor decreased. Crime committed. Stunned Kim Chulso realizes the truth: this old guy is a saint. He just took the fall and got arrested to save Kim. The nervous young man screams that he heard the main quest is at the castle, but the gates are sealed shut. A stranger's voice drifts from behind. That door isn't opening anytime soon. Kim spins around, asking who he is. The guy has a literal exclamation mark floating over his head. Name Shin. Our hero realizes instantly this is a quest NPC. The man deduces the kid is an outsider since he's banging on the gate, demanding entry, like a maniac. He notes that he likes the sparkle of adventure in the boy's eyes. Even if he does have the blank stare of a vegetable, the blonde man points a finger. "I choose you," he adds, that the young fighter is going to help with a job in the lost ruins. The stranger asks for a demonstration of skill, but the boy just freezes, staring at him with intense emotion. The mission: bring a golem's core to Shin. The reward: a measly 250 gold coins. Smiling, the brave man looks at him and says, "You stupid NPC." Guy thinks thanks for the heads up about the dungeon genius. Suddenly, he's dropped straight into the lost ruins. A literal death trap with boiling lava below and massive razor-sharp saw blades slicing the air above. Kim's stats are high enough to parkour this nightmare in his sleep, but he's stuck playing babysitter, lugging Catherine Lee's dead weight. He decides to take point, planning to warp the goblin and the girl attached to its leash right behind him. He drops into a sprinter's crouch, digging his fingers into the stone muscles coiled like a spring, ready to launch. He explodes forward, blurring past the whirring death machines, adrenaline hammering against his ribs. No turning back now. Panic rising, he screams for his minion to follow through, praying the AI doesn't glitch on this insane jump. On cue, the pointy-eared freak leaps, soaring over the molten hellscape, white-knuckling the safety rope. He sticks the landing and looks up, flashing a too easy look at his master. Kim smirks, mentally high-fiving himself for equipping the rally skill, which teleported the monster instantly to his side. But the victory lap is cut short. The summon made it. But Catherine Lee is still stranded on the starting line. Kim freezes. The skill description was specific: summons Goblin, not Goblin plus cargo. In that split second, she's teetering on the edge of the inferno. Panic spikes to 11. He screams as gravity starts to win, envisioning her crisping into ash. He barks an order at the goblin: fix this or we're all toast. The creature violently yanks the tether. Catherine goes airborne, rocketing straight toward the spinning buzzsaws. Kim covers his eyes, peeking through splayed fingers, bracing for the splatter. Miraculously, she lands with a heavy thud at his feet, limp as a rag doll. He shakes her frantically. "Wake up, do not die on me right now." He's pleading with her lifeless body, triggering a memory deep inside her subconscious. Flashback. A young Catherine faces her father. He's not happy. She's late, hanging with the wrong crowd. He glares at her makeup, her skirt hem, all of it unacceptable. Small and trembling, she sobs, begging for forgiveness, swearing she'll be perfect next time. Tears streaming, she apologizes over and over until desperation hits. She screams for her mom. "Dad's gonna kill me. Stop him," she shrieks, terrified of the violence in his eyes. But her mother just stands in the doorway, cold, detached. She watches for a second, then turns her back and walks away. Back in reality, Kim stares at the catatonic girl. She's a total deadweight, the only flaw in his perfect run. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Desperate, Kim turns to the Goblin. "Any ideas?" "CPR. You do it." Then it hits him. This is a VR game. Avatars don't need oxygen. If she's not waking up, she's likely clinically dead or disconnected. He decides to fake a rescue attempt just to cover his bases. Good Samaritan laws and all that. Maybe a little shock will reboot her system. He puckers up, grimacing, leaning in for the kiss of life when a holographic call blasts in his face. It's her bodyguard. Checking in. No, he's threatening to delete Kim if anything happened to her. Kim sweats, swearing she's totally fine, just resting. The butler isn't buying it, explaining he's monitoring the game professionally, and real-world doctors are tracking her vitals. If she flatlines, Kim's finished. He mentions her gear, the white spider dress. Soft as silk, tough as tank armor. Kim realizes she's not dead, just stunned. The butler's voice drops low, warning Kim that if even one hair on her head is damaged, he demands Kim bring her back. Kim's response. He casually swipes right, hanging up on the guy. The bodyguard stares at the call-ended notification, fuming. Back in the dungeon, Kim checks if the Goblin caught that intel. Gears are turning. He's got a crazy idea. Change of plans, shorty. We're speedrunning to the boss room. The Goblin grins. But first, they have to dodge a massive boulder thundering down the corridor, ready to flatten them into paste. Kim looks at the indestructible girl and uses her as a human surfboard. She can't feel pain and her dress is invincible, right? They slide to safety, reaching a shattered bridge where the Goblin waits. He launched the girl skyward using the long rope like a human catapult. With perfect timing, he flung the beauty across the gap. Right after the master started his high wire act across the tension line. Their final boss fight, taking down a massive stone golem. They kept their cool once again, treating the girl like a piece of equipment. The Rocky Hulk paused to size up the kid who was already in motion 4D, chessing a strategy before the monster even blinked. The guy was actually hyped. He'd accidentally turned the lady into a literal human weapon against the boss. Talk about efficiency. Then everything went sideways. He was fuming. How dare this piece of trash attack his trap disarming tool? He barked at his Goblin to dust the enemy instantly. Meanwhile, the unconscious lady was slumped against the wall, and her fingers twitched, but Chulso missed it. The enemy showed zero mercy, raining down attacks, meant to wipe out anything breathing. No survival chance. Suddenly, K-boom, a massive explosion sent shockwaves rippling out. But our MC stood his ground. A savage troll burst straight out of the inferno. Eyes locked on the target with pure hunger, the agile ghoul rocketed straight for the stone golem's dome, dealing massive damage and stunning the beast with agony. The eared creature stuck the landing like a pro, while the boss crashed down, pulverizing the stone floor. Arms crossed, looking totally unbothered. Calm Kim announced it was time to grab the core and dip. He hadn't even broken a sweat. But hold up, the enemy triggered a regen phase. Rubble and cobblestones flew in from every angle, resurrecting the rune golem into phase 2. Even the cocky kid had to admit that was impressive, especially since the boss just leveled up. Nervous now, the dark-haired MC ordered his Goblin to end this creep before they got toasted into ash. The nimble monster started zigzagging, refusing to be an easy meal. Then came the hit, boom, a solid strike clocking in at 1 million damage. It looked insane from the sidelines. Smirking, our guy noted that his summon was performing way better this round, but no time to chill yet, because guess what? The cycle repeated, and the boss started healing again, coming back harder and stronger. Welcome to phase 3. The giant clenched a fist right next to tiny pissed-off Kim. The kid summoned the Goblin again, ordering it to run defense. Attacking was risky, killing it just made it respawn bigger. Suddenly, a whip cracked against the troll's skull. The boy's nerves spiked, but he fought down the panic. Explosions started popping off everywhere. Terrified, the kid scrambled to retreat while he was still in one piece. The merciless beast tore through everything, enraged by these intruders, daring to step on its turf. Blind with rage, the brute threw a full-power haymaker. Somehow, the dark-haired hero dodged death. He realized the mechanic this thing would keep respawning stronger until he snatched the core. Right then, he remembered the stories from that sly fox, Senril, who had the intel on bosses. He racked his brain for a weak spot, but realized, unlike the Eden Guild, he couldn't spot the weakness. Frustrated and nervous, he just wanted to brute force kill this bastard. But if it hit level 100, game over. Kim Chulso, dripping sweat, kept charging like a maniac, adrenaline blocking his brain. Meanwhile, Catherine was sitting there, frozen stiff, totally clueless to the nightmare unfolding. Suddenly, a massive stone hand loomed right in front of her, ready to smash her pretty face into paste. A dark shadow swallowed her, and Lee's eyes widened with alarm, which was a huge shift for him. Her reality flipped upside down in a heartbeat, as the giant reached out to crush her like a bug. A few seconds passed, and she snapped out of it, realizing she was seconds from death. She wanted to scream her lungs out and bawl her eyes out, but she was paralyzed with shock. The giant didn't pause, smashing through the path with explosions rocking the room. A super tense Kim Chol-so saw Catherine waking up, but she was sitting dead center in the kill zone, and he couldn't reach her. He tried to convince himself that at her level she could tank the hit, but it was still terrifying. The stone golem was having a blast, swinging wild haymakers, and needed to be put down fast. Stressed out of his mind, the hero practically chewed on his own fist. While the goblin was just vibing over in the corner, totally clueless, the lady materialized behind our young hero out of nowhere. She was gripping her cane like a weapon, her voice rising as she demanded to know what the hell was happening. Caught completely off guard, the fighter stumbled, realizing with a jolt that she was finally conscious. But the suddenness of it had him freezing up. Catherine didn't waste a second. She triggered her escape skill stunned and ordered the boy to explain the situation right now. Kim felt his stomach drop but quickly checked to confirm she was actually awake, a sliver of hope forming in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't recall the shady stuff he'd pulled on her. He tried to convince himself the lady was safe, so it was all good. In fact, she should be thanking him. Smirking, the satisfied guy thought about how he'd just saved the life of the Semyon heiress. That meant a massive payday was coming his way. He started gushing, spinning a story about how she passed out in the dungeon, and how he'd nursed her back to health through his own suffering. But the beauty cut him off before he could even finish his script. She instantly clocked that he was speaking total nonsense. Suddenly, she flicked her hair back with attitude, and literally yeeted the main character aside. He didn't even have time to process the physics of it. Clad in full armor, Chulso hit the ground with a nasty crash, kicking up a cloud of dust that had him coughing his lungs out. The tense brunette snapped, shouting that she'd scared the life out of him and asking why she didn't give a heads up. Like a warning before smashing him in the face would be nice. Then he spotted the girl sprinting away and realized she was trying to save her own skin. Bursting into tears and white-knuckling her cane, Catherine screamed that she was absolutely terrified, but she was helpless to stop it. Suddenly, she let out a scream that broke character, catching the attention of the doctors nearby. The medical team monitoring her vitals froze. The stunned butler, just like the hospital staff, couldn't believe the lady had finally woken up. It had been way too long. His relief turned to rage as he realized something horrific must have gone down inside the game. And Kim Chulso was definitely the one to blame for traumatizing the beauty. Remembering the kid's smug face during their call, the man grit his teeth, wondering what that scoundrel had done to Catherine. One medic suggested yanking the plug on the VR device, but another argued she had barely regained consciousness. They couldn't risk blowing this chance. The brunette countered that logging out during a dungeon raid was impossible. It was way too dangerous. Despite the pain, the determined gentleman put on a serious face and declared he would investigate everything personally if the hero managed to clear the dungeon right now. Meanwhile, a system alert popped up for the fighter. The ruined golem was casting stone rocket. The brute launched multiple shells per second, and every single one packed lethal damage. Catherine kept running for her life, desperate to escape, but the boss had its massive fists locked onto her coordinates. In a flash, the giant closed the distance, causing the fragile girl to turn pale with pure terror. Cold sweat started pouring down her face. Unexpectedly, the nimble goblin swooped in to save the beauty, dealing heavy damage to the enemy. And blocking the hit meant for the lady. The stressed-out hero shouted that with her lagging speed, Catherine would never outrun this opponent. The girl just froze, collapsing to her knees and staring into the void in total horror. She didn't even have the energy to speak. She just muttered under her breath that she was scared to death, unable to pull herself together. Fighting back was out of the question. On high alert, Chulso told himself this wasn't working and decided he needed a plan to calm her down fast. He whistled for the goblin, who was standing there like a goofball, grinning and sticking his tongue out ready for orders. The brave man decided to just knock the girl unconscious right there, figuring her weak will and whining would only drag him down. Suddenly, the lady started whispering something, and the brunette couldn't quite catch it. What did she want from him? Feeling totally helpless, the beauty looked him dead in the eyes, voice trembling, begging for salvation, and promising a mountain of cash. Grinning, the hero swore he'd get her out safe and sound, even as a bead of sweat rolled down his cheek. But the quick-tempered lady suddenly screamed that he had it all wrong. Rivers of tears continued to stream from her eyes. She started shrieking that she hated the Semyon group and its toxic employees, begging him to save her from her father, her mother, and the entire family. This revelation stunned the young man, stopping him from jumping to conclusions. He just listened in silence. Clutching her head, the sobbing girl confessed she didn't want to be beaten anymore, like she always had been. The stern butler stepped up, threatening to hunt the scoundrel down if he didn't show him the lady immediately. The hero ordered the goblin to buy them some time so they could escape the merciless golem. He instantly grabbed his club. Discouraged, Kim asked what he was supposed to do if the man didn't trust him and thought he was the villain. Forcing Catherine's face into a smile with his fingers, he gave a creepy grin and asked if trust wasn't the most important thing. Switching into business mode, the daredevil smooth-talked the butler, assuring him the lady was perfectly fine, no need to hit the panic button. But the brunette was totally confused. He couldn't wrap his head around how Lee wasn't freaking out. She was awake and alert, meaning that earlier collapse was just a temporary seizure. Pushing up his glasses, the butler admitted he had misread the room and basically told the young man to get the hell out of the dungeon. Word on the street was his guardianship gig was over, but Chulso wasn't vibing with that news at all. Putting on a tragic face, Kim claimed he had just shaved 10 years off his life and couldn't help the lady anymore, unless she kept her promise and paid up. Wiping tears, the girl confessed she had capped there was no money. That triggered his temper instantly. The anti-hero laid it out cold. If Catherine didn't cough up the cash, he'd snitch to the butler that she was faking her recovery, and he'd squeeze a reward out of the Semyon group himself. Panicking, the lady offered to strip off her top-tier legendary gear, but only if he kept his mouth shut. Tense Chulso asked the million-dollar question. How much gold would fencing this loot bring? She shot back that he'd be an instant billionaire. Deal sealed. The fighter clapped his hands and ordered his goblin to get on the grind. The monster stood there, drooling, totally frozen, while the level 5 golem locked eyes with him. Stunned, the hero told his minion to just draw aggro and stall, while he wrecked the environment, letting the enemy power level to 170. Panic set in. The brunette bolted, screaming that they were about to get turned into paste if that bruiser landed a hit. Suddenly, boom, someone unleashed an exploding icicle skill, freezing the giant solid. Confused, the hero saw the boss stop moving and figured the threat was neutralized. Ice-cold Catherine had frozen the boss and screamed at him, asking if the fool was going to fight or just stand there like a statue. The fearless lady yelled that the boy and his pet needed to run like now because the target was about to thaw out. Seconds later, the ice cracked and the creature unleashed a roar that made it clear nobody was getting out alive. The trio sprinted at full speed, trying to keep their cool and not lose momentum. Up ahead, a tense Kim spotted a door safety was just a dash away. They relied on a taut, thick rope to bridge the gap. Caught off guard, Catherine Lee was once again treated like a prop by the main character, but before she could process the betrayal, she was flung sideways, a sharp pain shooting through her neck, while Chulso and the troll kept pushing forward. Alerted by her screams, the brunette glanced back, but his brain couldn't compute the chaos. The terrified lady begged for help as gravity sucked her toward the massive golem. The young man froze, totally clueless on how to handle a girl falling into the epicenter of doom. This wasn't like the last escape. The kid was running on empty, zero stamina left. Fighting back tears, the sweaty warrior tried to hype himself up to save Catherine this time, but the math didn't add up. He knew if she got tagged by a level 175 golem, there was nothing he could do. Survival instinct kicked in, the coward kept running, ignoring Lee's desperate screams. He never looked back. Triggered, she remembered her cold-hearted mother who stood by while her father beat her. Realizing Chulso was just another abuser. Lying in the dirt, the lady accepted her fate. No knight in shining armor was coming. Death was incoming. Suddenly, the monster's hand was shredded by a flurry of deep cuts. In the same beat, debris exploded everywhere as a warrior with a sword charged through the dust. A blonde guy in a yellow cloak pulled a total superhero landing, saving the exhausted lady at the buzzer. Gritting his teeth, Kim Chulso recognized the new player he'd seen this guy in the city. It was the cheerful Shin, realizing the rookie had survived a long time, but now the real carry was here. The hero realized there was no golem core. Attacking it blindly was just buffing the boss. It was a scripted event. If a player is losing, an NPC spawns to clap the enemy and save the day. The fighter felt zero pain from a level 50 hit earlier, proving the game was rigged to prevent accidental deaths. Swordsman Shin was about to deliver the final judgment on the raging golem, but the young man decided he wasn't about to let the NPC steal his glory. Without warning, the brave rookie rushed in to attack the Titan himself. The brunette watches in shock as a fireball blindsides the fighter while he's busy trash-talking, screaming, "Take that like a maniac." Our guy is completely shook because literally seconds later, that NPC gets ragdolled across the arena like a kicked soccer ball. It's actually hilarious watching Shin scream victory lines, even though he's face-planted in the dirt, absolutely wrecked but refusing to quit. Zero fear in his eyes, the blonde lunatic charges back in with a massive jump attack, but the Hulk is way ahead of him. The stone giant tanks the featherweight strike, slamming the guy's head into the wall before he can deal a single point of damage. As the fighter keeps yapping, a nervous Kim scans his stats. He's level 70, but he's hopelessly outclassed. The ruined golem starts at rank 40, but here's the twisted logic. If a player tries to brute force it, they'd get crushed by a level 45 mob. Even if the warrior wins, the enemy respawns stronger, so the outcome is rigged. Usually a high-level NPC spawns in to one-shot the boss and save the day. That exploit worked before, because nobody ever dragged the giant all the way to rank 171. But now, the game has changed. Chul-So is fuming as the battle stalls out, while Shin is stuck in a loop, repeating his victory catchphrase. It clicks for our hero, unless that core gets smashed. The golem is immortal, and the swordsman is the only one who can pull this off. Suddenly, as the blonde moves, the stone brute's core is exposed, and the momentum of the fight shifts instantly. The fighter dives back into the fray, hyper-focused on the kill. Kim keeps his cool, realizing that, if the core is exposed, this brutal beatdown is about to end. Laughing like a psycho, the brave fighter opens his mouth to brag that he barely broke a sweat, but the golem's massive fist is already incoming, aiming to take his head off. Out of nowhere, the goblin enters the chat. He unleashes his stone-throwing skill, dealing massive critical damage. And a sharp-eyed Chul-So realizes the NPC just sniped the giant's weak point perfectly. Game over. The Hulk shatters into a pile of gravel, hitting the ground with a thunderous crash. Shin puffs out his chest, claiming they'd all be dead meat without him. While a dumbfounded Chul-So knows he just stole the kill, the fighter shrugs, saying at least. Everyone is still breathing though. Our exhausted protagonist begs to differ. His gaze shifts to Catherine Lee, slumped nearby, completely drained by the ordeal. She stands amidst the settling dust, staring blankly at the floor, not even flinching. After a breathless moment, the squad heads back to the city with the swordsman's silence hanging heavy over the group. Dead serious. Shin claims surviving that hellhole proves their strength, but our hero realizes it looks more like he betrayed the lady. The fighter brags that he's tight, with the vice captain of the Royal Knights, and the nervous brunette prays this loudmouth can actually pull some strings for him. Flashing a $1 million smile, the blonde declares mission accomplished, and struts away. The NPC drifts off into his own world, leaving the young couple alone. Suddenly, a quest marker pops up over his head again, and our MC screams that the guy is insane. The discouraged youth stares at the bot, in total confusion, while Catherine stands there lost in her own headspace. The brave man clenches his fist inside the iron gauntlet, fighting back a wave of guilt. He snaps, screaming at the top of his lungs, that this is on him because he assumed the girl was awake. Suddenly, a knight materializes in front of them, zeroing in on the lady with a stony expression. The stunned brunette doesn't recognize this guy, but knows better than to mess with him. This screams danger. He's never seen such god-tier gear on someone who dwarfs him in both size and stats. Terrified, Catherine freezes, paralyzed by the sight of her father, and Kim Chul-So realizes the king himself has logged in. The old man confesses he knew his daughter regained consciousness. When she seized up earlier, he figured she'd snap out of it when she grew up, accusing her of playing annoying pranks. Smiling, the man thanks the boy for babysitting, and notes that their shared hopes for her awakening finally paid off. He promises his staff will arrange the reward, but the brave man isn't celebrating. The soldier sees the truth. The girl's face is twisted in pure agony. She stopped begging for help. But him? He felt a surge of main character energy. This time he'd save her for real. He bellowed a command, freezing the king in his tracks. The older gentleman and his daughter blinked, totally blindsided by this kid claiming to know Kim Won's true face. Our warrior didn't flinch, demanding to know if he was really the chairman of Sam Young, the guy famous for his angelic kindness and top-tier manners. Catherine Lee stood there, shook, trying to decode his play. Then he turned the spotlight directly on her, asking if her dad really lived up to the hype. Fearless Chul-So pressed on. If this guy is such a saint, why the resting doom and gloom face? The hero wasn't backing down, shouting that he wouldn't let this slide. He yanked the beauty toward him, grip tight. Fury rising, he roared, asking why that nasty old geezer was just watching. But then, reality glitched. He wasn't holding the lovely Lee. She was drifting away with her father, silent as a ghost. Crushing disappointment hit Kim. Why did he think this man would keep promises? He was a coward. A total loser who couldn't even claim second place. Could a guy who didn't deserve redemption ever play the hero? His inner voice whispered the harsh truth. He was just a goblin, a nobody destined for zero glory. Nearby, a guard nudged his buddy, asking if he recognized the King of Knights, one of the legendary three who raided the Duke's great library. The crowd went wild, spotting Mr. Kim Won strutting with a stunner, who smiled and waved for the cameras. Everyone demanded the tea on the lady, but he lied through his teeth, claiming she was just a squad member. He stumbled upon. Cool and collected, he whispered. A threat to Catherine. Remember his public image, and how they worshipped him. If they knew she was his daughter, the judgment would destroy him. Fans scrambled to touch the king, while sad sack Kim Chul-So stood frozen, eyes glued to the dirt. The mob surged, ignoring the armored kid drowning in misery. He tried to justify it. Catherine was corporate royalty, the chairman's daughter. Even if her life sucked, she was high society compared to his gutter status. Why feel guilty? He tried to chill, focusing on the reward money. But then a voice spiked his adrenaline. It was that sneak Sin Ryul calling from behind bars below ground. Our hero was confused. Since when do people get locked in what looked like a literal sewer? But the old guy clarified. That's exactly what it was. The bearded man explained he'd been snagged by guards earlier, but broke loose and was camping out here for the view. He dropped a bomb. The chairman called that girl a squad member, but she was hurt way worse than him. Kim Chul-soo scoffed, explaining that in this game, pain is an illusion. The body doesn't actually bruise. But the old man cut him off even from that distance. He spotted distinct beatings on her inner thigh. That revelation hit our protagonist like a truck. No way was he letting beautiful Lee get abused like that. The brave man screamed, demanding the King of Knights halt right now for a serious chat. Dead in front of the crowd, the warrior branded him a worthless piece of trash. Talk about a bold move. The kid didn't stop, asking if public kidnapping was legal now, right in front of witnesses. He shouted that the rich really have zero conscience. Unfazed by the roast, Kim Won just smiled, replying that he had no clue what the boy was yapping about, and suggested he zip it. Kim pulled a face, asking if the guy thought his CEO title meant the laws of physics didn't apply to him. Then he dropped the nuclear option on the crowd, declaring that the stunning woman next to the old geezer was actually his girlfriend. He doubled down, adding they'd been an item for a long time. Catherine was so shook she let out a massive scream. A bystander gasped. If that's true, it's a massive scandal. But his friend pointed out there's zero proof, and corporations love spinning fake news. The